a stationary version of the long jump, which involves a very fast sprint to a board embedded in the ground, from which you take off into a pit of sand. Mummy also did that, the long jump, as well as the high jump, and won some medals at international level. There was a photograph in an album of her receiving a medal from the King of Sweden not long before the last war, although I can't remember for which event, or whether it was gold, silver, or bronze. But anyway, there she was in the photograph, a medal winner, and acknowledged as such by Swedish royalty. I have an idea that it was King Gustaf, but have no idea whether Sweden ever had a king called Gustaf. It's just that the name Gustaf has attached itself to the memory of a small man with a beard, holding something out to Mummy, who was stooped in a sort of bow. But what was she wearing? I have a memory of her position, but not of her clothes. I wonder what happened to the photograph, and how old I was when I saw it. I do remember clearly that it embarrassed us, Nigel, my older brother, and me. We didn't like looking at it, or hearing about her athletic achievements. They seemed inappropriate for a mother, even a long-legged mother who swam and played tennis, and would race after us to deliver a kick or a blow up and down the stairs or across the garden. I've described elsewhere her combative nature, her readiness to meet perceived impertinence or foolishness with a kick or a cuff, and how, after 5 years of separation, we were evacuated to Canada during the war when I was 3, Nigel 4, we relished the excitement and drama she brought into our lives, as well as the reassuring intimacy of casual and only accidentally painful violence, when our reflexes failed, for instance, and we stumbled into, rather than away from, the swiping hand. But the idea of her running about and jumping in public was strange and distasteful. Her winning medals somehow made it worse. It seemed much more respectable and normal that she'd been a gym teacher and coached lacrosse and hockey at a girls' school until she met and married my father, a Canadian doctor, a locum at her father's practice. Actually, he was engaged to her sister until Mummy returned from her school in Shropshire and took him for herself. But why am I going back into all this history? I've already written about it elsewhere. I think to establish that being good at running and jumping, football and cricket, was in my genes, and that the memory of being good seemed to be lingering in my body like a taunt, as if my legs themselves had a memory of a time when they could lift and stretch, and I could fly along the top of the ground with no need of muscles or bones or lungs, all those parts of me that have become more and more noticeable as they've served me less and less well, like bad waiters. A ridiculous analogy. It would make my body into a restaurant. But it gets me back to the sentence that I interrupted about being in the churchyard just a few hours ago, feeling that I could walk, was in fact walking, with power and authority. So how could I be terminally ill? And deciding to test myself further with a little run. And I tried, and I wrote. It was as if I'd never run before, and really the sentence should have gone on, which is probably why I couldn't do it, because the fact is that I couldn't, not even for 3 steps, for all my legs' memory of once having sped and flown, etc. They'd forgotten. I've forgotten how to run. I tried to work it out, the mechanics of it, and after a bit of lifting my legs and pumping my arms while stationary, I tottered forward and managed a jerky little passage of about 15 steps, of something that was more complicated and more urgent than a walk, but also made me feel ill with exhaustion and shame, as if I'd been struggling uphill with a great weight, which was, I suppose, the weight of myself, accumulated over 7 decades. I thought I must get home and lie down, and headed towards the gate, which the 2 corgis woman seemed to be holding open for me, but wasn't. She was holding it open for her dogs. Just as I got to it, she let it swing shut behind her, and hurried off with her head down, the dogs scampering playfully around her, and I had to fumble for my key, locate the lock, heave it open. And here I am, having rested on the bed for a while, writing it all down and thinking as I do so that this is not the way a man should confront the fact that he's dying. How can writing of his failure to run about in the local churchyard possibly help him? And what if I'd succeeded? What if I'd sped and flown up and down the paths as once I could have done? Once upon a time I could have done. A short history of failure. I keep sitting down to go on with this again and again and again, night after night after night, but it's no good. I suppose that I'm the writing equivalent of dumbstruck. It's been weeks now, a month even, the whole of July, and I still can't do it. That's August gone, the summer almost over. I haven't the will, is the truth of the matter. Perhaps it's been zapped by the radiotherapy. Every time I pick up my pen, I write into my yellow pad either a squiggle or that I can't write, and put the pen down again. We've planned to go to Crete. In fact, we should have been...